I need to take these glasses off because the glare from the ring light is going to be distracting to you guys, but please know that I am now pretty much completely blind. That is how much I love you. Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome to what I believe is going to be the last video in this whole long drawn out series of videos about moving to and living in Kuwait. Honestly, once this video is done, I will have nothing left to say. I'm pretty sure I will have shared all of my Kuwait knowledge with you guys. And if any of you are new and you're interested in this kind of content, I'll link all my other Kuwait/Middle East videos down below so you can check those out. I'm so glad that these videos have been useful to you guys. You guys have really gotten behind them. Some of you have hated them with a passion that seems bordering on extreme, and some of you have really loved them. So you can't please everyone, and I'm sure this video will be the same. Today we're going to be talking about teaching in Kuwait because that's a really big topic. Originally I wanted to make this a Q&A. I got like 2 Qs. So we're just going to go off the main themes that people generally ask me about when I tell them that I'm a teacher in Kuwait. Before we do that, please, friends, help me, because I went today and put on my Arabic name necklace and I haven't worn it in a long time and I can't remember which way it's supposed to go. Is this right? Does this say my name? Does this say anything? Should I turn it around? I don't know. I know a lot of you guys speak Arabic. Help your girl out. I'm struggling. I can't remember which way it's meant to go, and you know, I don't speak Arabic. Okay, with that crazy plea out of the way, let's get into this. No, actually first I need to apologize for the crazy lighting. That just is my life, okay? Should have filmed this video like 4 hours ago, and now it is what it is. So the first thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to teaching in Kuwait is finding a teaching job, because without that, you are going nowhere fast. I've said this before and I'll say it again, it's pretty easy to come across a teaching vacancy in Kuwait. So when I was living there a couple of years ago, a bunch of friends of mine were switching schools and looking for different jobs, and new people were coming in and out all of the time. A lot of schools in Kuwait have a high turnover rate of teachers, which means they're constantly looking for new people. So even though right now the school year has already started, or whenever it is that you're watching this video, there are probably plenty of teaching vacancies in Kuwait. That just comes with the territory of international teaching. A lot of teachers will move to a new country and then get homesick or culture shock and they'll leave, so they need to be replaced. So there are a lot of vacancies throughout the year. The best way to find a job, in my opinion, is to use an online agency. I'll leave a list below of a few that I've used in the past, but anything like The Guardian Online, eTeach International, Teachaway, like just Google it. Google is an amazing resource, and if you just Google teaching jobs Kuwait, a bunch will come up. Kind of along the same lines, I'm asked all the time what qualifications are required to teach in Kuwait. This is a sticky situation because you guys have heard me say before, when I was in Kuwait, I had teacher friends and I knew plenty of teachers who weren't necessarily qualified to teach. They had qualifications, but not in teaching. So people will come to me and say like, do I need a TEFL? Do I need a PGCE? Do I need a BA in education? And I'm like, look, honestly, throw your hat in the ring with whatever you have and see how it goes. Because in my experience, people were being hired who did not have the qualifications that they realistically needed to have. I'm not saying that that's how things should be. I'm not saying that that's necessarily legal. I don't actually know what the law is on that, but that is the way that things were when I was there. And the final question surrounding that I've gotten a couple of times recently is the difference between applying to a private school and a government school. My honest answer to that is I don't know, because I worked in a private school. All of my teacher friends and all of the teachers I met in where was I? Kuwait. Help. I've never met anyone who worked in a government school, so I can't really give you a perspective on the differences there. I am sorry. The next thing you need to know if you are planning on teaching in Kuwait is that the salary is negotiable. So I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the UK there is a very strict pay scale for teachers. In your first year you will earn this much, and after a certain amount of time you can earn this much more if you do these certain things. And it's very clear, it's very open, everybody knows how it works. It doesn't work that way in Kuwait. There's no like, this is the minimum amount that teachers make, this is how much you make after 1 year, this is how much you make after 2 years. It seems to be very much the people are kind of just making it up as they go along. So when I got my job in Kuwait, I got offered, I don't even remember how much I got offered, it was like a few years ago now, but I had a friend who had been offered substantially more to work at a different school in Kuwait. So I had that information and I was able to haggle a higher salary. Whereas when I got to my job, other people had just taken the initial offer and ended up earning less. So I think the main takeaway from this is that in some schools, not all schools, but in some schools in Kuwait, you are able to haggle and say, no, I'm going to need a higher salary in order to relocate, and there is wiggle room there. The really good thing about working in Kuwait is that there is the opportunity to make a lot of money as a teacher, much more than I could have made in the UK, and it's tax free. But just do a little bit of research, just do a little bit of questioning about how much the school you are applying for is paying other people, because you don't want to be the person who just accepts the first offer and then kind of gets ripped off. Now let's get into the working day, because the average school day in Kuwait is very different from the average school day, say, in the UK. So for a start, the school day is a lot longer, or at least it was in my school and in the schools in the surrounding area where I worked. We would work from 7 o'clock until 3, I think, and then sometimes we would leave at 3:30, if I remember correctly. Like, it was a long day. Compare that to in the UK. I think my niece at her primary school, it starts at like 9 and then it ends at 3:15. So it is like an extra 2 hours of work, which, okay, it's not exactly a huge amount, but having to be at work at 7 o'clock, you are going to need some serious coffee, let me tell you about it. The trade-off for that is that the timetable is a lot less intense in Kuwait than it is in the UK. For teachers, not for kids, but for teachers it's a lot easier, because the kids have to have a certain amount of Arabic lessons, Islamic lessons, Kuwait social study lessons, and in private schools as well, they'll also bring in specific teachers for like PE, art, music, and you don't have to teach those things. So those become your free periods when you can do your marking and your planning. And I will tell you that in the entire time that I worked in Kuwait, I did not take work home once. Teachers out there will understand that that is a big deal, because when I was teaching in the UK, 4 nights a week, I would work until 9 o'clock at night, and then I'd work half of Sunday as well. Like, I had no life. Now let's talk about the children, because they are a pretty big deal when you're a teacher. When I decided to move to Kuwait and I made my YouTube video about it, I had a lot of people reaching out who had worked as teachers in Kuwait or were still working as teachers in Kuwait, and they were warning me about the behavior of the children. I have heard so many people say that kids in Kuwait just can't behave. But I don't necessarily subscribe to this idea that all kids in Kuwait are crazy and they're jumping off the walls, because I mean, you could say that about any classroom in any country, anywhere. Obviously there are going to be cultural differences, and the kids there might behave differently to kids that you've taught in other places. But if you hear people saying like, no, the children in Kuwait are so badly behaved, like, my kids were fine. I love them. I miss them every day. They were not angels, but they were pretty good. So when you're teaching in Kuwait, you might actually find that you spend more time dealing with the parents than you do with the children. So let's talk about that parent-teacher relationship, because I've never experienced anything like it before in my life. The parents of the kids that I taught in Kuwait were super duper involved, and as a teacher, that's a great thing. Like, no teacher's gonna be like, hey, you parents, you're too involved, you want too much for your kids, you're trying too hard to help me do my job. Nobody's gonna say that. I absolutely loved that the parents wanted to come and talk to me every day, and by every day I mean every day. A queue of parents every single day. But I loved it because then you can give them the information that you need. I mean, you're probably a teacher if you're watching this, so you know that yes, if you are working in a school in Kuwait, you are going to be spending a lot of time with the parents, and it can go one of two ways. If they love you, then they love you. I was so lucky. I had the sweetest parents in my class. They would send me the nicest messages telling me how wonderful I was and their children loved me, and they had my back. Like, these people, while I was there, they would offer to give me rides places. I remember one time I had the flu. One of the little girls, her mum was a doctor, so she came in with a bunch of pills for me. Like, nothing was too much for them. They were just so sweet. But if the parents don't like you, you're gonna know about that too. I, like I said, was super lucky. For the most part, all of my experiences were just above and beyond nice. I did have one instance where a mum threw a report card at me. It happens. And again, that can happen anywhere in the world. It's not just in Kuwait where parents get angry. Parents get angry everywhere. But I experienced some crazy things while I was working in Kuwait, because in my school no one ever seemed to monitor who was coming in and out of the building, so angry parents could just roam the halls raging and shouting and, you know, telling everyone that this teacher was a terrible human being, and no one would stop them. Everyone was just like, so yeah, emotions can be a little bit on edge because these parents invest a lot into their child's education, especially if you're working in a private school. Those things are expensive. They're paying you a lot of money to get a job done, and if they don't like the way that you're doing it, you are going to hear about it, and you're probably going to hear about it at like 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning when you're in bed, and then they're gonna be angry that you didn't answer them, and that's just the way it is. The next thing that I think it would be super helpful to talk about is what you can expect from your employer when you move to Kuwait as a teacher, because there are definitely a lot of benefits that come with most teaching contracts. I have them written down, and seeing as I don't have my glasses on, I have to hold this really close to my face. So the first thing we've already talked about is the salary. Negotiate on that, and the good thing is that it's tax-free. You usually get your accommodation provided for you. Now, you guys, if you saw my Kuwait apartment tour, you know that my accommodation did not live up to what was promised at all. So I would just err on the side of caution with that. If your school says we provide our own accommodation and that's where you're going to live, I would just check and make sure, just say, if I get there and I don't like it, is there an accommodation allowance that I could take instead? Some schools will just give you the money each month for your rent, and then you just go and find your own apartment, like I'm doing here in Bahrain. I definitely think that's an easier route, and it means that you're going to be living somewhere where you're actually comfortable living, unlike where I was living in Kuwait, which was not comfortable. They're also going to need to pay for your visa, your flights to Kuwait, and your flight home at the end of the year, and your medical insurance. I never got that. Never ever. That's why kids had to come with bags of pills into school for me, okay? Because I never got my medical insurance. Finally, I just wanted to run through a few things that I wish people had told me about before I moved to Kuwait. These are some not so good things. They might never happen to you. They probably don't happen to the vast majority of people, but they happen to me, and so I would prefer to tell you so you can try and avoid it happening to you too. I had a lot of problems with my payments in Kuwait. Getting paid on time literally never happened. Towards the end of the year, the company I worked for felt as though they just didn't have to pay if they didn't want to. As many of you know, I'm still caught up in a lawsuit with my old employer, so I don't want to talk too much about it because it's still ongoing. But check your contracts. Check your contracts and know your rights, because not just my employer, but a few different people I spoke to, the companies they worked for tried to play them and take money that was owed to them, or withhold money, or do things that just would sketchy AF. I just want you to know that you're in a different environment. You don't necessarily know the legal system. Arm yourself with as much information as you can, just in case something like that happens to you. I wouldn't want anyone else to go through it. It was not a good experience. Okay, camera battery is flashing. We have like 30 seconds to wrap this one on up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. Again, if you want to watch any of my other videos about Kuwait, I will link them down below. Don't forget to go ahead and subscribe. This is thumbs up. Subscribe to see more videos like this one. Then you can thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that little bell. But now, before this camera dies, I'm gonna go ahead and say thank you guys for watching. I love you all so much, and I will see you soon. Bye.